Hello, guys. Welcome to Beyond the Plate. You can hear us in audio form on 94.3 on the FM band in Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru, and Chennai. Big love to all our loved ones, our listeners from Bengaluru, Chennai, Delhi. Thanks for joining the Mumbai family here, which is Chef Amrita, Raichand, and me, Hrishi. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Hrishi. How are you doing today?
Excellent. We already got some great feedback from a gentleman in Chennai who really enjoyed your beer and pizza episode, and he said keep them coming. It was wonderful listening to Amrita.
So happy to hear that.
Okay, today is a day of huge responsibility for Amrita as a chef, and of course for both of us on our show. And tell us exactly why, Amrita.
You know, because Hrishi, here on Beyond the Plate, besides spreading the goodness and joy of food, we also need to pay attention and highlight the grave situation where across the globe, countless people grapple with hunger and starvation. It is, after all, World Food Day, a day that commemorates the founding of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, better known as the FAO, that came into being in 1945. So the 20th session of the FAO conference took the unanimous decision of observing World Food Day as an internationally celebrated day every year on 16th October, and that started in 1979.
Wow. So I imagine the main objective of this organization is to involve governments and people and try and free the world from hunger, malnutrition, poverty. It just breaks my heart to see malnourished children. Yeah, I mean, they don't deserve to go through that on this particular planet. I imagine that the FAO does a lot to try and see that we eradicate hunger. And if you could tell us a few things that they do.
Well, besides organizing hundreds of events and outreach activities around the world, they advocate and spearhead global initiatives to improve nutrition, to increase agriculture, productivity, raise the standard of living in rural populations, and contribute on the whole to global economic growth. So, you know, it's very interesting how collective action in up to 50 languages across 130 countries, including, of course, India, is what makes World Food Day one of the most celebrated days of the UN calendar.
Lovely. Guys, what happens at the end of the show is the Ask Amrita section. Ask any question on food, food history, recipe of the day that she does, and we'd be happy to answer it. 9833943943. Wherever you are in India, you can use this. It's a WhatsApp line 09833 943 with the last 3 digits being our frequency. Yeah, and put your question down and also put your name down and WhatsApp it to us, and Amrita will answer that. So since it's World Food Day, one of the most celebrated days in the UN calendar, why don't you today read out some facts, some of them very alarming, that the FAO has stated.
Yes, I'll do that. And, you know, when we started this episode, you very rightly said it's a huge day of responsibility for us because, you know, being a chef, being in the industry of food, we always like to talk and think about the bright side of food. But there are alarming facts that literally shake you up. And I'll read out a few to you. There are about 820 million people in the world that go to bed hungry. Almost 1 in 10 people globally are undernourished, and more than 3 billion people cannot afford a healthy diet. Even in India, regretfully, we are not doing well at all. India ranked 107 out of 121 countries in the Global Hunger Index 2022, making our country's hunger situation really, really serious. And we all know globally, Hrishi, in the last couple of years, food security has been gravely affected by rising inflation, which has been made with the COVID-19 pandemic, with the current Ukraine war. It's just mayhem out there. Hence, World Food Day really serves a great platform to remind everyone of the need to ensure food security and access to nutritious food for all.
You know, it's crazy. But if you just think of the amount of food we waste as human beings, you know, and the more privileged the country is, the more guilty they are of that. I mean, I think of the kind of portions they serve in the US, for example. I mean, it's humanly impossible for one person to finish that. They're massive, massive portions. You end up wasting that. It just goes into the trash.
Yeah.
Equally true of the lifestyles of the rich and famous here in India. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean, I'm going to nibble at it and throw the rest of it away. And I think tackling the amount of food that humans waste is obviously something that they're very keen on doing.
I, in fact, have a statistic of that as well, and you'll be shocked. It's really mind-boggling. Approximately a third of the world's food supply is wasted every year, and when we have 670 million hungry people worldwide, you'll agree that kind of waste has a devastating, human cost.
All right, so now we know what the problem is, and on World Food Day, Amrita is now going to tell us how we can contribute in small ways. Start small.
Yeah, we know the problem, we know the negativity, and we do need to highlight it, but we also have to see the positive side, and we have to know that each one of us can make a difference. Very often we feel if we do this, what will happen?
Yeah.
Only how can one person's contribution make any difference? But, every drop in the ocean is what comprises the ocean. So what can we do? We can shop smart. We all have a tendency of just, buying more than what we need. So the rule that I've made in my house is that before ordering anything, you will first check the refrigerator, we will first check the pantry, and only things that are needed will be ordered. We usually just tend to order, let's just buy a couple of more bottles, we'll see. And that we'll see actually leads to wheel waste, which is really bad. Again, we have to store food correctly. Even after buying, how we store and how we use leftovers is of paramount importance. We need to invest in small containers, and I feel even if you can't invest in that, you have glass bowls, you have steel katoris in your house. Use that instead of plastic containers. Leftovers, the other day I was talking about this at an event, and somebody said, you're a chef, it's so easy for you to figure out smart ways of using leftovers. And I was like, my mum, who was a great cook as well, but she was no professional chef, and I remember she would not let one morsel of food get wasted. If there was extra dal, she was making dal paranthas. If there was leftover sabzi, she would turn it into a wrap or a sandwich. She found ways. What about rice? Anybody can make some fried rice. Just throw in something and turn it into something edible instead of just throwing away that rice. So if I had to give you ideas as a chef, I'd say make arancini balls with that leftover rice. But I'm not telling you to do that. I'm saying turn it into a goddamn simple pilau or fried rice. So yeah, that is another important technique to stop wastage. Now coming to preserving. We've had techniques of fermenting, which has been going on for years. People just don't do it anymore. Fermented foods are so good for us, for our gut. We've spoken about it on Beyond the Plate earlier. Why don't we apply those techniques in our kitchen even now? It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. Finally, things like, just very often, I don't know if you've noticed, I don't know how often you open your fridge. I know you're here in the studio all the time, and maybe your wife does it. But if you just...
you'd be surprised how many times I open it at night.
But if you open it at night and you see one little piece of fruit, which is probably half cut, or a little bit of dahi, very often, the casual tendency is you just chuck that away. Who's going to eat that? But if you just put these two things together and make a nice smoothie out of it, you've avoided that wastage, and it's actually healthy for you. Similarly, with small little piece of cauliflower, little beans are left, one little dirty looking potato is left. It's just looking dirty, but it's absolutely fine to put it all together with perhaps some cheese, bake it up and have a nice gooey exciting baked dish. Throw in some pasta if you must. So there are so many simple ways which can lead to zero waste, but somehow we don't really pay attention to it. And you were talking about America. Very often people just serve with their eyes. They fill up their plate too much, and what does that lead to? Either they can't eat it or they will overeat. They'll just fill themselves up. Both of these habits are terrible for the environment and for the body. So,
and I'd like to round this up saying compost, please.
Yes.
I have a cousin in Bangalore, Poonam, who runs Daily Dump, and she's been educating me on the ways of how composting is the way forward. You just gather all your leftovers, your food scraps, and you reuse them, because food waste turns into energy for plants.
Yes.
And you can put them in the compost pot. So I think that's a great way of doing it. The bottom line, there are endless ways you can reduce, reuse, and recycle your food waste. So please think consciously about that. This particular audio, if you're listening to audio and you want to see the video, remember in 2 days' time, which is every Wednesday, it comes on the Radio 1 International YouTube channel. Also, what happens is on 94.3 Radio 1 India and on the Amrita Raichand Instagram handle is this wonderful recipe of the day, which Amrita shoots in her studio kitchen. That's something to look forward to, you guys. And your YouTube channel would be
Amrita Raichand, Chef and Beyond.
Chef and Beyond. Okay, the theme for World Food Day 2023. Let's round up this whole discussion on World Food Day by just giving out the theme and what it means.
Yeah, so, from 1981, what started happening, Hrishi, is that World Food Day adopted the policy of coming up with a different theme each year. And I think it was a brilliant idea because that way they can highlight areas that need action in that particular year, giving everybody a common focus. And this year's theme is Water is Life, Water is Food. Leave no one behind. Beautiful, isn't it?
Nice, very nice.
And we all know how essential water is to life on Earth. Besides the fact that it covers majority of the Earth's surface, it constitutes 50% of our bodies. It's not only necessary for growth of crops and livestock, also very, very important for processing, distribution and preparation of food. I'm sure you understand the significance of water, and so does World Food Day this year. It kind of highlights the crucial role that it plays in all our livelihoods, in supporting our livelihoods, and highlighting water scarcity as a significant challenge in many parts of the world.
They always say the future wars are going to be fought for water. And that's a very scary proposition.
Very, very scary.
According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 people worldwide do not have access to safe drinking water. That's very disturbing. Only 2.5% of water is fresh, which is suitable for drinking and agriculture. But we live, we learn. I believe you learned something from your son's EVM book.
Yeah, these facts disturb you, but then you go back to trying to find a positive way to kind of combat this, and that's why I want to quote something that I learned with Agastya while teaching him from his geography book, that rapid population growth, urbanization, economic development and climate change are all putting the planet's water resources under increasing stress. It's so therefore important to stop taking water for granted and start improving the way we use it in our daily lives. Hrishi, on a day-to-day basis, how much water we waste while bathing, while shampooing, while brushing, while shaving, while washing. I mean, sometimes I have these wars at home when I see my staff just, water is running and they're just, not even using that incidentally at that point. So I literally have sat them all down and given them a pep talk on how they need to just shut the water, use it when it's needed, and then turn it on again. So that's at micro level, but at macro level, I'm sure the government is doing a lot, but we all have to be aware of the of these things and try and find ways of producing more food and other essential agricultural commodities with less water. Ensure water is distributed equally. Our aquatic food systems are preserved and nobody is left behind.
And finding safe ways to reuse water and can also prevent water pollution. I mean, look at the amount of rain that comes into Mumbai city.
Yes.
If we could only harvest it, which is good because now rainwater harvesting has been made compulsory by the municipal corporation for all new buildings, Time now for the recipe of the day. Now, since water is the hero for this year's World Food Day, are you going to be doing something surrounding that?
Yeah, and who would have thought you can come up with a recipe for water? No, I genuinely wanted to bring this recipe to the fore also because this way also prevents water wastage. I've noticed very often, and actually I came up with this thought much earlier in my life when I always have bottles of water filled because we also have to drink at least 2 to 3 liters of water. So plain water used to be lying around for me. And what would happen is that sometimes if I couldn't finish that bottle of water, they would just throw that, particular bottle and then refresh it the next morning. And I started feeling very guilty. And I realized that why not infuse water and keep it. That way, even if you store that water overnight, it becomes even more flavorful, and it doesn't prevent you from indulging in
True.
it. It tackles two things. It also makes sure you drink the water, enough water that you need, and also prevents wastage. So this is very simple actually, and everybody can come up with their own concoctions. But the one that I particularly like is this. So I have some fresh basil leaves, some blueberries. I know they are expensive, but once in a while we can indulge in them. They're also full of antioxidants, so why not? And you throw in some fresh coconut shavings and some lime slices. I like to use that big lemon. It's available nowadays, so I just use that. But you can use simple nimbu, simple lime. If you don't want to use blueberries, you can just cut any fruit of your choice and throw it in. You can use English cucumbers and throw it in. You can use mint. But this is the concoction that I'm putting in. It's blueberries, lemon thinly sliced, fresh coconut shavings, and fresh basil leaves. You add in some cubes of water if you're serving it immediately. Otherwise, just put all of these in, let the water get infused overnight in the refrigerator, and while serving, just garnish with some more leaves, or a little added one or two more berries, and trust me, it is so refreshing, it is so wonderful, and it kind of highlights the fact that water is an elixir of life and makes it even more attractive.
Well said. Well, rounding up this World Food Day special episode is the Ask Amrita section. You too can ask Amrita. All questions are taken up and answered diligently. This is Richa Sharma, and Richa says, I want to ask Amrita, how can we reduce the sodium content in chaat without compromising on taste? Because really, the taste does come from sodium, doesn't it?
Hrishi, first of all, before I answer this question, I want to thank all the listeners. I have to tell you, I'm very impressed with the questions that have been coming my way. They are really intelligent and to the point questions, and I wish I could take more than one question, but Hrishi here doesn't give me that extra time. All right, so Richa, I love your question, and I know it was related to the chaat recipe that I had shared last time, and wherein I was trying to explain how you can make chaat at home and enjoy the goodness of chaat, and chaat is not always the devil. Which brings me to this whole point of salt. You're absolutely right. Chaats and dishes like this, snacky dishes like this, do tend to be overloaded with salt. And the best thing to combat that is, first of all, make it at home. When you make it at home, you control the quantity.
True.
Secondly, try and use rock salt. That is indeed the purest form of salt. Having said that, if you completely want to avoid salt, things like chili powder, even chaat masala, which has the sulfurous black salt. If you're using chaat masala, easily omit the regular salt. You don't need to add both the things. Cumin powder, a little bit of lime. Lime makes everything magical. Just a little addition of that yummy juice full of vitamin C will make such a difference to the chaat. All the chutneys that you're making, make at home. Control the quantity of salt that you use. The papadis, the additions that you're using, if they are homemade, again, it's in your hands how salty you want to make it. If you want a really quick tip, which I thought of just now while talking to you, I make nachos with roti.
Oh.
And they're really cool, I'll tell you. You just, on a pan, just seco your proper roti, and they become crisp and crunchy. Use that instead of papri. So that has no salt and gives you that crunch that you want, that papri feel. And there you have a chaat where you've controlled it. So it's all in our hands. How we put the recipe together ensures how healthy we make it.
She's on Instagram at Amrita Raichand. I'm at HRISHIKAY. We're at 94.3 Radio 1 India. Our YouTube channel is Radio 1 International, and we will see you next week, 8:15 a.m.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Hrishi. Thank you for having me here. Happy World Food Day to everyone. Please do your bit. This is very, very important. We all have to contribute in creating a better environment, a better world, and a better food situation in our country.
94.3 Radio 1.